Yep.
Take it away.
We have 5E, which is the dock application at 288D Harbor Boulevard. I'm going to kind of address this simultaneously with 5F, the dock application at 302 Harbor Boulevard, because these docks are located adjacent to each other, and in fact, I think they're connected by a proposed boardwalk. So it's easier to think of them as one dock, although when you vote, we have to do it separately because they're different upland parcels. So the applicant here is Perry Enterprises. I see Claude and a couple representatives of Perry Enterprises over there. If whoever is going to testify could please stand up to be sworn in. Go ahead, Ray. Mr. Perry or Mr. Trammell, one of you want to come up here and kind of introduce the project?
Thank you, Council. Matt Trammell, Taylor Engineering. We're here representing Mr. Perry. He had contracted with us to obtain the permits and authorizations for his two properties. I think it's a pretty straightforward project. Mr. Bauman's done a great job laying out exactly what we're looking for. We're falling under an exemption that's allowed under the current land development code. However, each one of the properties falls slightly short of that exemption. We're providing well beyond the public slips that are required. We are providing one water taxi dock as opposed to two water taxi docks for, one on each property. It's kind of silly to put two water taxi slips within 50 feet of one another. And then lastly, we are not providing the commercial slips that are required. So you may think of it as Mr. Perry is giving an additional public benefit, if anything, to his commercial downfall, I will say. So that's as Kyle's laid it out. We're two fair carrying slips short on one of the properties, and we're one fair carrying slip short on the other property. Mr. Perry will be happy to add more commercial slips if the council so chooses, or we can approve the project as proposed. We do have DEP and Corps of Engineers authorization. It did go to the Harbor Board, I think the last meeting in December. It was approved unanimously. The Harbor Board did seem to think that it was a larger public benefit to approve the project as proposed, and that's why we're here today.
And was there any changes in the documentation you sent us that's in our briefing materials? Everything is?
No changes from the DEP or the Harbor Board. Everything has been the same and consistent, what you have in front of you.
And the Harbor Board approved this project unanimous?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Oberdeer.
I'll make the motion if you like. I move to approve the application for marine construction at 288D Harbor Boulevard and
Just do the 288.
288 Harbor Boulevard by exercising the city's police powers in a manner which maximizes the public benefit.
Second.
I got a motion, a second. Mr. Braden.
How's it going to affect these parcels if one parcel is sold and the other one's not?
They are actually two, it was historically the two parcels that have always been seen as separate entities, separate parcels. It's the same owner, but it is two separate parcels, two separate permits, two separate submerged land leases. And I think that's exactly why Mr. Bauman has recommended that they be two separate motions.
That's right, Rodney. So you are approving one dock at a time. So the specific proposed slips in each dock are what you're approving. In the agenda item, I laid it out kind of as one dock because practically speaking, it is kind of viewed as one dock.
So are we joining the two pieces of property to be able to build the dock the length that is being built?
No, that's
No,
not,
sir.
I don't believe, what they're
No.
proposing.
They are not codependent on one another. Each property could have its own separate dock and does. They are connected through an upland boardwalk and an upland dock, but neither one is dependent on the other.
It just looks like one piece would encroach on the other piece if they were eventually separated and sold.
No, there's no encroachment. DEP allows for the docks to be constructed up to the property line, and as Mr. Perry is his own neighboring adjacent parcel owner, he's given himself that setback waiver. He's given himself that authorization. So they are abutting the property line, but there's no encroachment over the property or riparian line offshore.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Ramswell.
Thank you. So essentially what we're looking at here is the only reason we're having to approve this especially is the fact that Mr. Perry actually doesn't want to have several of these as fare-carrying vessels. He actually would like to make them public. Is that correct?
That's correct. In my discussions with Mr. Perry, he wanted to provide, there's a huge lack of public slips and waterfront on Destin Harbor. I think we have all of 2 slips. I don't know the exact number, but we're proposing nearly almost 20 public waterfront slips that will be available on his 2 properties. That's going to benefit the harbor waterfront, the harbor boardwalk, and all of the harbor area in general. So that was his plan all along, to provide the greatest public benefit to that area of the harbor waterfront.
Absolutely, I agree. And all day long, I'll take people that want to do public slips opposed to, fare carrying or additional commercial. So that's terrific. Thanks.
Just for the record, 21 of the proposed 40 slips will be available for public transient mooring. That represents an increase from the 9 of 21 currently.
Okay, we got a motion, we got a second. Is there any further discussion? The only thing I would like to bring up is there's some ambiguity about what defines a fare-carrying vessel, and I would like for us to address that in our ordinance. Put that on the agenda to clarify that as being either a charter for hire vessel or dolphin cruise boat, something along the lines, and not a livery vessel. So we can do that.
That is something that we can do, and I would recommend that we do. The primary issue is that actually our LDC does not define fare-carrying boat as the term is used in this exception, but our comp plan defines fare-carrying vessel. So I borrowed that definition and applied it here, but we can define that better in the LDC.
All right. Seeing, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote on this, so we start on the second one. By the way, I forgot we have to have public comment. It's a hearing.
Yeah, good catch.
Would anyone like to speak on this dock? No. You can come up here, ma'am, and offer your public comment during the public comment period. Public hearing. Now, it doesn't say you have to make a statement, so you are allowed to have public inquiry. Yeah, we don't know who you are.
Marcy Bell, 3 Gulf Race Court. I just have one question. I think it's a great idea. So if it's transient and there's that many, 21, is there someone I would ask, but I'm not allowed to talk to the people. Is there some way to manage that? Like, what if there's 22 boats and only 21 slips on a Saturday that want to use that to go to the restaurant or?
Usually the landowner does that. I know at Marina Cafe, they manage their transient boats because they have permanent dock boats there as well, and you always call the marina. They can put big boats in their slips, and people are always asking me where they can dock a 50, 60 footer, and I always tell them call Marina Cafe. Well, I'm sure Mr. Perry's going to have a project or a manager on site that will handle, because he's going to get the same thing. He's going to get inquiries, where can we dock our boat, and how long can we stay, and how much is it going to cost me, and that kind of
Well,
stuff.
and I only ask because for a short time in the 90s, I worked one summer at AJ's when they did have transient slips, and sometimes that was a problem. People wanted them.
Thank you, Marcy. Any further comment? Seeing none, let's go ahead and take this to a vote. Vote is unanimous, ayes have it. Let's move on, Mr. Attorney.
Yep, if Mr. Trammell could please step up and just confirm that we're talking about the adjacent dock here and everything applies to this dock, that'd be great.
That's correct. Same exact discussion we had before. Same condition applies where, I don't know if it was this property or the other, but either 1 or 2 commercial vessels shy of meeting the exemption requirements.
Mr. Overdeer,
I'll make the second motion again if you want.
And I'll second it.
please do.
Move to approve the application for marine construction at 302 Harbor Boulevard by exercising the city's police powers in a manner which maximizes the public's benefit.
Second.
Second
Public
by-
comment?
We got a motion, we got a second. And we will have public comment. Seeing none, is there any comment here amongst the council? Seeing none?
Just like to thank you all on behalf of myself and Mr. Perry. Appreciate it.
Ayes have it, unanimous, so moved. All right, consent agenda. Lance, would you like to address?
There's 3 items on the consent agenda. I'd be happy to explain any of them if they need explanation.
If there are no discussion, I'd like a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve A, B, and C.
Second.
I got a motion, got a second. Any discussion on any one of A, B, or C? Seeing none? Ayes have it, unanimous, so moved. Mr. Braden,
Thank you, Mayor. Just got one announcement. Clemson's up 28-16.
Is that roll Clemson instead of roll Tide?
is that at the half?
I got it. Yeah.
I wonder if their backup quarterback's gonna come in the second half. Ms. Ramswell,
Nothing tonight, Mayor, thank
Mr. Menchel, your first time.
Yes, I would like to say a few words regarding what an honor and privilege it has to have been selected to serve as a city councilman until the special election on March the 12th. To my fellow council members who had the trust and faith to vote for me, I want to express my sincere appreciation and say thank you. As the chairman of the Public Works and Public Safety Committee and the vice chair of the local planning agency, serving in these positions has allowed me to stay up to date on many of the items we will be addressing tonight and in the future. To the citizens of Destin, although you did not vote for me, and this is a temporary position, is only until the special election, I'll be working hard to gain your support and your vote on March the 12th. Since I'm retired, I can and will work full-time for you, and I ask only one question, that you call me anytime. If I can assist you, I answer any questions. And I'm excited that I didn't mess up any votes tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. I'm glad to have you on board, sir. Mr. Over,
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to nominate Jim Foreman for the Board of Adjustment.
Second.
we got a motion, we have a second.
Could
You're going to have to, and what I would ask is that since he's been on the city council and hasn't been off the city council for a year, that we kind of delay this until March, which will then give him time to be off for a year because there's some kind of stipulation, I guess, in our city charter or city code that says.
So on the 14th of March, he can be on the Board of Adjustments because the election was the 13th, 2018.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Ye- Yes, there is a year cooling off period for any appointed position.
So can we vote to nominate him this, but not take effect until the 14th of March?
I would recommend we hold off until March.
Okay, then
Just bring it back.
I'll just let you know that on the 14th of March, I'll be nominating Jim Foreman for the Board of Adjustments.
Mayor, may I ask a question?
Go ahead, Ray, you're allowed to ask questions anytime you want.
Jim Foreman has been appointed to the town center already. Does he have to resign?
Oops.
Is there a difference
Yeah,
between a
yeah.
committee and a board in terms of that rule?
The charter, hang on a second, let me pull it up. I believe it says any appointive position. So if that is appointed by a council member, then yes, Jim should not be on that board right now.
Well, now that that boo-boo has been discovered, maybe he just misses a couple meetings and
Maybe
then
we need to change-
we'll
maybe we-
reappoint him
yeah.
all in March.
Okay.
Put that on your calendar, Lance.
On this same line, can you send us a list of the current vacancies and committees?
I'll send you on a roster.
Okay, that'd be great.
All right,
That's all I have.
Councilmember Marlar.
Nothing except congratulations, Steve, and welcome aboard. And that's all I have tonight.
Mr. Destin, you're gonna steal my thunder on this one, go.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of thunder. This is the coyote problem. Everybody who's lived in town has seen plenty of the coyotes driving around late at night. They look like,
I see them in the day now.
I mean, it is pretty bad. They, you can spot them. They got the long spindly legs, and there's just a lot of them. And so anyways, I'm bringing this up tonight because I have gotten a flurry of calls over the last couple of months with people having their animals, domestic animals, attacked. And I think we've probably hit a saturation point where at some level you have just a background level of coyotes. I don't think you ever get rid of all of them, but at a certain level they finally hit a point and they kind of, that critical mass where they just start having more and more babies. And so we've come to a point to where we probably need to start trapping them and getting rid of them in whatever humanely way we can. I know that the city council did this probably about 15 years ago and had worked with some expert professional trappers to do that, and they set up traps around town, and I think they were moved around 25 around the year early 2000s. Anyways, I would suggest that we instruct Lance within his powers of his spending cap to go ahead and reach out and employ professional trappers to address the coyote problems.
I spoke with Okaloosa County Commissioner Kelly Wines today about this issue, and they've got the problem in the county just as well as we do here in our city. And he said that the commissioners would probably be really interested in maybe co-sharing with some of the expense, not only Destin, but the greater Okaloosa County. So Lance, if you'd like to contact them, he had a couple companies that they've hired in the past that for you to consider. So if you'll take care of that, because we definitely got a problem.
I know we've had a really bad problem in Indian Bayou, and I know when I look at my security cameras, you can see them running up and down the street, over on the golf course. We actually lost a cat to one 2 years ago, and I
Yeah.
know of a person
Yeah, they're
that-
getting it from the air and the ground because we
Literally.
got eagles now, and they've been swooping in and eating little dogs and little cats too, so.
But I know our homeowners association actually got a trapper to come in and start trapping them in Indian Bayou.
Right,
So
the
that might be a
largest-
resource too.
The largest parcel left of undisturbed vacant land is the buffer zone next to the airport. If you look on Google Maps, it's actually huge. It's the last green spot we really have in town. But they've proliferated all over the city, but they're thick back there. They hide in the brush during the daytime. So, Lance, can you give us a timeline probably as quick as and not tonight, but basically, can you give us each individual calls, and people can opt out if you don't want the coyote update, but I'd like to get something by the end of the week. Thanks.
Let's
Yeah.
fence them in and put them on a reservation.
No comments, thanks.
We've been commenting all week.
I've said enough.
All right, Kyle.
So I've just got a quick update for you on the East Pass administrative action. As you know, the Donovans and the Sherrys, they filed an administrative action in which we were named as a respondent with the FDP. You hired Ken Ortell to represent the city at the last meeting. FDP did recently dismiss that action on a threshold standing issues that the Sherrys were having trouble with. FDP did, however, give Donovan and the Sherrys leave to amend. I think they have to do so by January 16th or somewhere around there. And also, as I've discussed with you privately, the Sherrys have made a settlement offer, which the county commission is going to be considering in a meeting next week. We met with Lance, me, Matt Trammell, Ken Ortell, and met with Greg Casella today, and he kind of gave us a little bit more details on what that settlement offer will be. The gist of the offer is that the area on Okaloosa Island, which we call Reach 3, will be getting between 80 and 120,000 cubic yards of sand. That depends on whether we are able to, the amount between 80 or 120 will depend on whether we are able to get the easements necessary to be able to deposit sand in Reach 2, which is the Sandpiper Cove area. So the settlement offer is that they get that sand first, and then we deposit the sand in Destin, and the amount of sand will depend, again, on whether we can get into Reach 2. That amount is between 120 or 160 cubic yards, which will be placed in Reach 1, and possibly some more in Reach 2, just depending on those easements. The Sherrys are also agreeing to carve out from their administrative challenge the portions of the challenge that are preventing the Army Corps from performing the dredge. So what this does is it frees up that $1.5 million in federal funding. The Sherrys will be allowed to pursue their remaining challenge. That will be focused on a rural challenge on the existing inlet management plan. Of course, this entire agreement is dependent upon FDP granting the Army Corps a notice to proceed under these terms. That's not a sure thing because the Destin beaches are far more eroded than the Okaloosa Island beach, which my understanding from conversations with Mr. Trammell is not eroded at all. But it is what it is. You know, we want the access to the federal funding, and so does the county, and they hold the purse strings. So that's basically all I have for you tonight. If you have any general questions, feel free to ask them. You know, if you have anything specific, I'd encourage you to contact me privately, though.
Well, my emergency declaration that I put out last week was to get that pass dredged for the fleet. And this compromise will get that done. And we'll worry about Reach 2. We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, we're doing everything we can to get there, but it's dependent upon getting the gap to agree to those easements, so we don't.
Yeah, instead of cross that bridge, I think we'll cross that easement when we get there. Mr. Tadlock will be instrumental in that, working with us. All right? I'm going to declare this meeting adjourned so we can watch the second half.
There is no more public comment.
There's no more public comment?